Have you ever wondered why losing even the smallest thing, a pin, a key, a message left on read, can make you feel so uneasy? Why do we feel hurt when something or someone slips from our grasp, even when we knew all along we couldn't truly keep it? Imagine this. A woman walks into our monastery courtyard with tears in her eyes. She had just lost her wedding ring, something she'd worn for 15 years. Her voice trembled as she said, "It's like a piece of me disappeared." I asked her gently, "Did the ring ever truly belong to you, or did it simply pass through your life for a while?" In our modern world, we are surrounded by the idea that ownership equals happiness. We say, my house, my job, my reputation, my partner, even my thoughts. But what if I told you none of it actually belongs to you, not even your memories, not even your body? Would you still feel the same about success, love, or even pain if you knew they were only visitors? What if, instead of trying to hold everything tighter, the path to peace was learning to let go? Before you answer, let me ask you this. If nothing ever belonged to you, what would you have left to lose? Let's take a breath together and explore this truth not with fear, but with clarity. We are conditioned to believe that letting go is a kind of loss, a defeat. But what if letting go is not the end, but the beginning of clarity? There's a story I often share with young monks who come to the monastery burdened by memories or relationships they can't release. A man once came to see me, carrying in his hands a small cracked photo frame. Inside was a faded picture of his younger brother who had passed away suddenly years ago. The man had carried this photo with him every day, unable to leave it even for a moment. It had become more than a keepsake. It had become a weight. "I'm afraid," he said, "that if I stop carrying this, I'll forget him." I asked gently, "Is your brother in that photo or in your heart?" He wept, not because he had lost his brother, but because he realized how long he had tried to hold on to what life had already let go of. You see, clinging often masquerades as love, but love doesn't require possession. In fact, it thrives when we stop grasping and begin appreciating what's here, now. Letting go doesn't mean we stop feeling. It means we stop resisting change. Have you noticed how even your thoughts come and go without asking your permission? Sit quietly for just a moment and you'll see. Thoughts appear, vanish, emotions swell and subside like waves, and yet we try to own them. We say, my anger, my anxiety, my desire. But do we truly own what we cannot predict, command, or even understand? Take a deep breath. Ask yourself quietly, what are you holding on to right now? A grudge? A regret? A version of yourself that no longer exists? What would it feel like to release it, just for a moment? The truth is, everything we try to hold too tightly will eventually slip through our fingers. And sometimes the very act of holding on is what causes the most pain. The next part of this journey may challenge what you've always believed about security, love, and identity. But if you continue with me, I promise, it will also set something inside you free. Shall we go on? One of the greatest sources of human suffering lies in our relentless desire to control. We try to control our image, our emotions, even the people we love. We plan, predict, project. We build mental castles hoping they'll protect us from the unpredictable winds of life. But the irony is this: the tighter we hold on, the more fragile we become. I once met a young woman who was terrified of losing her job. She had worked tirelessly for years, always ahead of deadlines, always agreeable, always perfect. But behind that perfection was deep exhaustion. If I stop pushing, she said, I might fall behind. And if I fall behind, I might lose everything. I asked her, everything? Or the idea of who you think you must be? She paused. Her silence said more than words ever could. We often confuse stability with certainty, but no title, no relationship, no achievement is immune to change. The only thing that stays the same is the fact that everything changes. And when we can accept this, not just intellectually, but deep in our bones, we begin to live with a different kind of strength. A strength that doesn't come from holding on, but from being unafraid to let go. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, it honors them. It transforms the brokenness into beauty. In a similar way, when we stop trying to be whole by controlling everything, we begin to see that our cracks, our losses, our imperfections, our uncertainties are not flaws. They are where the light enters. So here's a question worth asking. What in your life are you trying too hard to keep whole? And more importantly, what might happen if you stop trying? Letting go isn't weakness. It's the boldest act of surrender. Not a passive giving up, but an active opening to the way things really are. In the next part of this journey, I will show you how this practice of release doesn't disconnect us from the world, but reconnects us more deeply to it. Because when we no longer fear losing what was never ours to begin with, we become free, not just to exist, but to truly live. Shall we continue? As the mind begins to understand this truth, not just hear it, but feel it, something shifts deep inside. The need to possess softens. The urgency to prove oneself fades. In its place, a quiet kind of freedom begins to grow. But of course, this isn't a transformation that happens overnight. Like learning to walk again after years of limping, it takes time, patience, and deep honesty with ourselves. A layman once asked me, if I let go of everything, won't I become passive? How can I stay motivated to build a good life? It's a common fear. But letting go doesn't mean we abandon effort. It means we release our desperation for results. We can work hard, love deeply, give fully, and still understand that none of it can be grasped forever. Let me share with you the story of Thao, a school teacher from Jalat. She came to the temple carrying a deep sadness. Her dream of becoming a writer had been set aside for years. She told me, I feel like I've failed. That dream used to define me. I asked her, was it the writing that nourished you, or the idea that you had to become someone because of it? She paused. For the first time, she saw how tightly she had wrapped her identity around an image of success. By letting go of who she thought she was supposed to be, she finally began to write again, this time from joy, not pressure. Letting go is not the enemy of passion. It's the beginning of real purpose. When we act not from fear of losing, but from freedom, everything becomes lighter. Relationships, work, creativity, all of it gains a quiet brilliance. So ask yourself, what are you still chasing because you think it will make you whole? What titles or dreams are you holding so tightly that they've stopped bringing you joy? Letting go is not the end of meaning. It's the beginning of clarity. You may wonder, if we let go of control, of identity, of our grip on the things and people we love, then what remains? What remains is what was always there: awareness, spacious, quiet, compassionate presence. Not an empty void, but a living stillness that welcomes life without needing to hold it. There's a monk I trained with many years ago. His name was Venerable Ananda. One rainy season, a terrible flood swept through our village. His small hut, built with care and simplicity, was carried away in the water. When we found him the next morning, soaked and shivering under a tree, he was smiling. I asked, "Are you all right?" He simply said, "I still have the sky." That response stayed with me for years. How often do we focus on what's gone instead of what remains? How often do we mistake security for the things we can measure, count, or hold in our hands? What if real safety is not having everything under control, but being free even when everything changes? Ask yourself, is there something you fear losing right now? A job, a relationship, a sense of stability? And now ask, what part of that fear comes from your need to possess? What part comes from forgetting that you've lived through every storm before this one? Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is to stop resisting. Stop resisting the changing body. Stop resisting the unfolding moment. Stop resisting the truth that nothing lasts, not even sorrow. The Buddha did not ask us to withdraw from life. He asked us to awaken within it, not to detach like stone, but to engage like water, gentle, flowing, ungrasping. When you learn to live like this, even grief becomes softer. Even fear begins to loosen. You start to see the impermanence not as a threat, but as a rhythm. You stop fearing the end because you're no longer trying to force permanence where it doesn't belong. So here's something for you to reflect on tonight. When you go to sleep, take a moment before closing your eyes. Think of one thing you've been holding on to, and silently, gently say, "Thank you," and "Goodbye." Say it to an old regret, to a pressure you've put on yourself, to an idea of who you were supposed to be. Let it go, just for now. You can always pick it up again tomorrow. But maybe, just maybe, you won't need to. And maybe, peace was never about having more. Maybe it's always been about needing less. And what if letting go isn't a loss, but a kind of becoming? What if true freedom isn't found in holding on, but in the quiet strength to smile when things slip away? Maybe you were never meant to own anything, only to experience it fully. Just imagine a life where you're no longer defined by what you have, what you do, or what others expect of you, but by the simple presence of being here, now, as you are. Are you ready? Not to give everything up, but to see yourself more gently, more clearly. In the next video, we'll explore a deeper question. If you are no longer bound by the past, the future, or who you think you're supposed to be, then who are you really? Maybe you haven't lost anything at all. Maybe you're finally on your way home. See you in the next part of this journey. Lifa.